You're listening to the What's Happening podcast with Gary Watts.
I'm here today with Randy Laing. He's the National Sales Director for Stryker Medical Sales, and I think it's in respiratory care. So anyway, welcome, Randy Laing. How you doing, Randy?
Good, thank you. I love the setup you have here. I didn't know what to expect when I came in today.
I think it's a green room. I don't know, at least a green light, huh? So I thought it'd be good to have you in today, and let's chat a little bit about kind of some of the things you've done with physical training, maybe go back to your days of where you come from. I know you're from Tipton originally and went to Wartburg, but maybe you could talk a little bit about athletics and some of the athletic challenges you've been through. You know, I want to cover things maybe like diet, weightlifting, all kinds of training things, discipline. So just to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you. So I grew up in Tipton, Iowa, as you mentioned, and lived there, until I went off to college and grew up working on a farm, was busy on my mom's side. Their family had a farm, and we spent a lot of time in the summers running around out there, working out there. And, Tipton was a great place to grow up because it was a small town, and I was very involved in sports. My dad was always exposing me to various sports. He was a big Hawkeye fan, and so at a young age, I always had a ball or something, a bat, something in my hand. And, it was a great community to grow up in, great place to live. I was able to play 4 sports, so depending on the season, it was football or it was basketball or wrestling or track or baseball. And you don't see as much of that today.
Right.
And I still love that about kids because when the season changes, they compete and they learn a new discipline and they get involved and they learn the art of teamwork and just being a part of that. So athletics was always a big part of my life.
Plus, Tipton, isn't it known for croissants or the bakery?
Yeah.
That has the best.
They do.
I don't know what they are, croissants or whatever.
They're
but
crescents, yeah. Many mornings we went there on Saturday morning. My dad used to get me involved with the local race there. There was a local 5K called the Jim Lyle race. Jim Lyle used to be seen running all around Tipton, and every year we'd do that, and we'd go get a crescent afterwards. And it's funny, I have 4 boys now. My dad still brings those over to our house. My wife loves them. The family loves them. And
they should
guilty
be illegal.
Pleasure. Yes.
There's got to be 5,000 calories per one. They're so good.
Yeah, they're not good for performance, but they sure are good for pleasure. That's for sure.
What was your favorite sport at Tipton then?
When I was a kid, I was the ball boy for the football team, so I was always on the sideline and always part of practice. So I always loved football. I love the sport of basketball as well. My dad was a huge basketball fan, but those were probably the 1 and 2. We always had a great track program in Tipton. Dave Oglesby was the athletic director, but also the track coach, and they won many state titles in Tipton over the course of his run there. He was a great coach. He pushed us, challenged us, and that was kind of really the root of where I got exposed to training and pushing myself hard physically. And Dave used to bring people in to speak to us. I had a coach named Coach Sesker as well, Paul Sesker. He coached me in football, but also in hurdles and in track. And they were old school. They pushed us hard. They put their arm around us, but they were people that wanted the most out of us, and they wanted what was best for us, and they pushed us. And a lot of the things that they did really prepared me for, sports and athletics beyond high school. So,
like what? Give me some ideas of old school when you say that.
Yeah, we did 2-a-days in track in high school,
Really?
and that's not super common. I don't think that happens in high school a lot today. So from the time I was a freshman, we did hurdling drills in the morning and then had track practice in the evening. And those that weren't hurdlers, they drove west of Tipton and dropped us off out at the Transformers, which was 2.7 miles from town. And they also had a 3.1 mile route. Once you got into town, then you did an extra loop and you got a 5K in. So a lot of aerobic based training in the morning for those non-hurdlers or shot putters or folks throwing the discus. And then in the afternoon or after school, we'd either do plyometrics or we'd do pool workouts or we'd do race-specific kind of things like intervals, 200-meter intervals or half-mile repeats, or it just really depended on what we were focusing on for the next upcoming meet.
So in track, were you a hurdler?
I started out as a hurdler, and always took a strong interest in that. I had a friend that was, his name's Josh Grau. He was a couple years older than me, great tailback in Tipton. He won Drake a couple times, the Drake relays and the 110 high hurdles, and he had a record at Tipton. He ran 14.7 seconds in the 110 high hurdles.
110s.
Yeah.
That's moving.
And he was one heck of a hurdler. So I always was interested watching Josh, and it really sparked my interest. So I did that I did that for 4 years, but towards the latter part of my senior year, I started running sprints because I had just picked up some speed over the years. And so, but yeah, that was always fun.
Sprints, 100s, 200 meters?
100 and 200, yep.
Great. Did you make it to Drake or anything?
We ran in the quarter-mile relay at Drake. Always did well at state. We always made it to state. I never ran like the 4x4 or the 400. I ran the 400 lows my freshman and sophomore year. But I would just say in general, the Tipton track team was wildly successful for a number of years because of the coaches.
Yeah. It's kind of like Regina's. They had Bob Brown coach in cross country for numerous years, and Regina was always at state in cross country.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know Coach Brown, just a great guy. He was wonderful. I remember one time I was doing some marathon training, and I came running into Regina, and I think we went to the dam and back, or out to the bait shop, they call it that run. And I get back, and I was running with Doug Rupert, and we're running in, and all the cross-country kids were still there because, we're old and slow. And I got in, and Brown had all the cross-country kids there, rooting us in. I thought that was pretty cool. They could have been in and showered and went home.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Went downtown and went shopping by the time I got in. But it was really neat that Bob had the kids there to root on everybody that participated. And then he was hanging around, said his last marathon didn't go very well. And he goes, I didn't do enough sprints. And I'm looking at Doug, goes, he okay? A sprint? A marathon's a long way, isn't it? And how does sprints help you in a marathon? But anyway, we can get into that later. But
yeah,
it's interesting when you've been around good coaches. So in the future, I've got Butch Peterson coming on and his son Lance.
Yep.
And you guys didn't play West Branch back then, did you? Football?
We never did in high school. We did in JV and junior varsity, but yeah.
Did you beat him?
In junior varsity, we did. We never got to play him when I was a junior or senior. So okay. I would have loved to do that.
Yeah.
Butch is obviously a local legend there.
Yeah.
He's had some great football teams over the years. Larry Rummels, great guy, great coach as well.
I think Butch has had over 800 wins in high school football, which is crazy, isn't it?
That doesn't happen by accident.
Right.
Yeah.
So we were in high school, you got track, and that kind of prepared you to get in shape.
Yeah.
Probably helped you for football, had a great coach. Now tell us more about, you went on to college, you went to Wartburg.
Yeah, so funny story, my dad in the summers, he always played slow pitch softball in Tipton. And Todd Sturdy was a local name that many will remember and many know today. And Todd was the head football coach at St. Ambrose. So I actually started at St. Ambrose my freshman year. And, for whatever reason, I didn't stay at St. Ambrose. But Todd had a great team, had a great program. So I went there on scholarship. The NAIA could offer so many scholarships. And I just kind of idolized Todd as a youngster, and I saw him playing slow pitch softball, and I actually went down and watched him play college football when he played at St. Ambrose, and that really was something where, being from a small town, I saw somebody that was an awesome athlete that actually played college football, and he was somebody that I was always really intrigued by, and just loved his attitude and his go-getter mentality, and he was just a tiger out there. He was fearless in how he played, and so I was being recruited by Wartburg as well, and I was looking at Wartburg, I was looking at St. Ambrose, but ultimately Todd pulled on the heartstrings and got me to come to Ambrose, and I went in as a tailback, and I think there was 42 kids in my freshman class. And when we show up, they have us do a test. And so there's some good athletes that came into that freshman class. One of the tests was a 40-yard dash, which is everybody knows about. in college football, but there was also a 300-yard shuttle. And it was 50-yard increments, so you went down back 3 times. Oh. They had you do one of those, and then they had you rest 2 minutes.
How'd you turn around? Did you go down on a 3-point stance, or
you took the line and they blew the whistle, and so you'd run one 300-yard shuttle, wait 2 minutes, and then they had you do it again. And really, the method behind the madness there was to assess how you recovered and who was in shape when they came into camp. And so I did really well in that, and I ran the fastest 40 in the freshman class. So I didn't stay at tailback for long because we had a couple really good tailbacks.
What was your 40 time?
Oh, probably around 4.7. Yeah, 4.68, something like that. I was never a lot faster than that. I think a lot of people say they ran 4.6 or 4.5, but when the rubber meets the road, that's 4.6, 4.7's a pretty darn good 40.
My 6.6 wouldn't have held up. Right?
You're faster than that. I've seen you run. But so I was a fifth-string tailback. I quickly got moved to the secondary, and I started rotating with the defensive backs. And
what were you in high school? Tailback
and safety, yeah.
Safety,
defensive back, and over the course of 2 weeks, long story short, I started doing well in practice, and I was rotating with one of the former starters at what they called the bench corner, which always lined up on the short side of the field. And being a young kid, being in a new place, playing with a lot of guys that are a lot older than me, it was a lot of fun, but it was also really scary.
A lot to learn.
Yeah, a lot to learn. New program, new people. A lot of guys are a lot older than me.
Were you playing man-to-man or zone?
A lot of man-to-man with safety help over the top. And
so you had to be on it.
You did, and we did a lot of one-on-one drills, and we had a couple receivers that were really good. And so every day in practice, I'd have to cover those guys in one-on-one drills. And started to fare okay there. I'd really never been coached in the secondary because my primary position was as a tailback in high school. And so anyway, I'll make this story quicker, but about 3 days before the first college football game against Drake, the guy I was rotating with that started the prior year wasn't in love with the fact that I was rotating with him. And he went in the coach's office on Wednesday night after practice and he quit.
Really?
So I got a call on Thursday morning, hey, we need you to come in the office. And the call was to let me know that I'm starting at corner. I'd only been on campus 3 weeks for our first game against Drake. And so that was my first real opportunity to play in a big event in college football. I think I always knew I wanted to play college football. I just didn't know that I would be starting my first game as a freshman. And
That's
so
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Not too many guys do that.
It was a ton of fun. It was scary as hell. I remember. I'll never forget. My folks told a story that they got to the stadium early. We were playing at Brady Street, and Mom said something to Dad. Look at Randy. It looks like something's wrong with him. I was white as a ghost. I was nervous as hell, and
sick to your stomach, probably.
Yeah, I was on kickoff team and all that stuff, and. But a great opportunity to kind of lean into those fears and for the first time really compete at a much higher level than I had ever done in a small town of Tipton and 3,000 people.
So how'd you get to Wartburg then?
So I had a bunch of friends. Matt Wheeler was one of them, Chad Gady that had gone to Wartburg, and Mike Elijah was a former quarterback in Tipton, a really good quarterback. He played quarterback at Wartburg, had a successful career, and Mike had exposed us to Wartburg. He was one of the assistant coaches at Tipton when I was in high school, and I was always looking at Wartburg. I always loved the school. I loved the Iowa Conference, a lot of very familiar teams in Iowa. And, after my freshman year, first semester at St. Ambrose, I had just decided that long-term I wanted to play at Wartburg. I wanted to play in a conference that was inside of Iowa where I knew everybody and there was nothing wrong with the program at St. Ambrose. Todd ran a great program. But I really desired, in terms of the cultural fit and feel, I just felt like Wartburg was the right place long term. And, I had a bunch of buddies up there, and then we were talking, and they were always like trying to get me to come up to Wartburg. And, to be honest, I was a little homesick. It was the first time I'd spend any time away from home, if I'm being honest. And so I was going to a place where it was much more familiar. I knew a lot of the guys. I knew a lot of schools I'd be playing against. I knew a lot of the people that were playing in the Iowa Conference. And I just really loved what they were doing. They had a great team. And, so ultimately I made the tough decision to go there the second semester of my freshman year, and then went on to have a career there and play with a bunch of friends. So
You were an All-American, weren't you?
I was a National Strength and Conditioning All-American, which was a team that was elected of college football players. I wasn't a AFCA All-American, American Football Coaches Association, but I was All-Conference 3 years in a row. Yep.
What was your record up there? Did you guys make the playoffs at all?
We made the playoffs my junior and senior year, sophomore and junior year. My senior year, we did not make the playoffs. Yep.
And Wartburg this year is going to the playoffs. I think they play Mount Union, don't they?
Yeah.
This Saturday.
Mount Union got an outstanding program, outstanding legacy up there for a long time. They've got many national titles, and so actually the gentleman that's coaching Wartburg, I played with, Chris Winter.
Really?
Yeah, and coached him a little bit. I coached at Wartburg after I finished playing there. Rick Willis was the head coach when I was there, and Matt Mitchell was the defensive coordinator. He's now the head coach at Grand Valley State in Michigan, a Division II school that's been really, really successful over the years. And I ended up.
What was your
coming
major? You're at Wartburg, and then you were a strength trainer, right? How did you get into that?
Yeah, so Matt Mitchell, as I mentioned, was our defensive coordinator. He's who I played for. He was a certified strength and conditioning specialist, and I took interest in exercise science, kinesiology, and fitness management. And fitness has always been a big part of my life. And so that's the bachelor's degree I pursued. And along with some of my studies in exercise science, I was able to get the National Strength and Conditioning Association certification and the College Strength and Conditioning certification, which are two pretty hard things to get. You got to put some time in, you got to test formally. And once I had those, I was, basically had the credentialing to coach college athletes. And so when I was coming out of school, Matt Mitchell was offered the head football, or not, he wasn't the head right away when he went to Grand Valley State. He went there to be a D coordinator. I was offered the interim strength and conditioning coach at Wartburg because I had all those credentials. And so I was able to work with the football team. I was very familiar to them. And I ended up coaching the wide receivers. And I worked for Rick Willis and Eric Kaler. And Rick Willis has had an outstanding career coaching at Wartburg. He's really well known in the Waverly community and in college football, and at the Division III ranks. He's been very successful himself, and those guys taught me so much that I just was delighted to coach with them. And at the time, fitness and football and coaching was my passion.
So it started back in track with that coach that had interval training, do runs, do different kinds of, sounds like almost hits.
Yep.
High intensity training and doing different specifics. Now you're at college, and then you got a strength and conditioning degree. So tell me, as a strength and conditioning coach at Wartburg, give me your thoughts when you had some young guy come in and he wanted to get stronger. How would you evaluate him? What kind of programs would you put him on? How did you look at ththings like that as a coach and as a strength trainer?
Yeah, so that has evolved a lot over the years in how athletes are coached. We at Wartburg were very focused on power, so not so much just sheer strength like the old school bigger, faster, stronger programs, but a combination of speed and power. So we did a lot of plyometric activities. We did a lot of power movements, so like the power clean, the deadlift, the overhead barbell snatch, and I also had an Olympic lifting certification, just a very entry-level one. But we did a lot of things with our feet on the ground, like when you're on the field,
Squats?
And we did squats, yep, absolutely. Variations of both front squat, back squat, single leg squats. But really it was all centered around how much force can you put in the ground and how powerful and explosive could you be. So we really focused a lot on those, what I would call Olympic movements. And then alongside of that, in order to develop there, you also have to just get some natural strength. So deadlift, squat, bench, front squat. Those type of movements complemented a lot of those Olympic lifts to really, to help us focus on power. And we also had an element to our strength and conditioning program that was very focused on agility drills and, quick, short bursts of movements, so that if you were a defensive player, we wanted to be able to get you to the ball as quick as possible. And we wanted you to be explosive and to react quick to that snap count, that ball movement, or, to be able to make a move quick to get an interception or to dive on a fumble. Or we were really focused on being strong but agile and powerful.
So you didn't really bulk them up. Like with the linemen, you probably bulked them up. At receivers, you're trying to get them stronger and faster, right? Or quicker?
Yep. We wanted explosive athletes, and athletes that could create separation on offense. If you were a receiver, or if you're a running back, you could create space and break tackles or create space for yourself. And then we did a lot in our secondary and with our defensive linemen and linebackers, for that matter. We did a lot of stunning. So we moved our defensive lineman. We'd smash the center and loop around him, or move our front four guys, and we'd blitz our linebackers a lot, and we'd blitz our safeties. And so we wanted explosive players. We wanted people that could get to the football quick and that could make things happen.
So did you enjoy training the guys or working?
I loved it. And, there was a little bit of having played with a lot of those guys where I had to kind of mature and grow up, and because I went from playing with them to, all of a sudden coaching them. And Rick Willis always ran a very tight program. He was very much about how you represented yourself, being a good ambassador for the program and the brand, and but also carrying yourself with teamwork in mind, professionalism in mind, but also high character, good attitude on the field. So
now you're out of school, and we're going to lead into all the fun things we've done since then, right?
Yeah. Well, you as well.
Yeah. So you're out of school. So were you always staying in shape? And then maybe just to go back just a second, let's talk about diet. You're a strength coach, but did you get into any dietetics, or when you studied in school? Tell us about you're trying to get stronger and faster, what you ate, just some things you did with diet.
Yeah, so I would say that's a little different than it is today in the fitness world I'm involved with now. But when I was a coach, we didn't really have a nutrition program for the kids or the athletes. It was much more about teaching them, educating them about the things they put in their body, eating high quality foods, eating good foods, limiting the popcorn and the fast food and the beer that always is accompanying college athletics,
That's a Nighthawk, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we tried to get them to focus on eating multiple meals a deal where they had high quality protein, beef, chicken, fish, eggs, but eating enough so that they could recover properly, and just staying away from packaged foods, eating real foods. If it grows on a tree or it grows in the ground, keeping it really simple for them, and eating things that are good for them, that are going to allow them to recover from the hard work that we're going to do, either on the court, out on the field conditioning, or while we're in the weight room.
So it taught them a lot, it sounds like. You didn't stroll through McDonald's a lot, right?
No,
French fries.
We tried to keep them away from the fast food. But, there's a lot of information out there on nutrition, and there was less at that time, but we knew enough to make sure that they were getting enough to eat and then focused on the right kinds of things to eat. Well, when athletes are that age, you can usually feed them a lot or encourage them to eat a lot and supplement with protein shakes and creatine and some of those safer things that allows them to recover from the hard work we put in.
So is that talk to us a little bit about creatine. Is that something that helps you recover your muscles, or it's more commonly used? It used to be kind of a bad word, or you'd be shy away from it and everybody gets scared of it, but now it seems like it's more active with kids.
It is, and I should say that I'm not an expert on these topics, but that's been pretty well studied, and really it's for recovery. It's safe from everything that I've read on about its testing, and if you're deficient in your diet and you're not getting the right kinds of high quality food, it helps aid in that recovery process, and and gets the muscle tissue what it needs, because we would break the athletes down purposefully. Or we would periodize the programming so that we would build in weeks upon weeks of stacking up volume and the work we did, and then we would have the weeks where we would call them recovery weeks, where we would pull back and not stop doing things, but allow the body to recoil, allow it to train with less intensity, and allow the muscles to recuperate so that we could make new gains and press forward again. And so it's a constant press, let the body recoup for a little while, press, and, just a progressive overload type approach.
What are your thoughts on diet as far as weight loss or strength gain? It seems like there's always these strange diets. There's some guys just listen to that he just eats meat, period.
Yeah.
No carbs, no vegetables. It's just a carnivore diet. I don't know what. It's like it's just all protein. And then you get some people that only eat plants. And I don't know if that's vegan or I don't know all these words.
Well, it's hard to track. There's a lot of info out there.
Yeah. But isn't it generally just have a well-rounded diet and try to get everything, fruits and vegetables, and watch your sugar intake? Isn't it?
Yeah,
kind of the keys?
Again, I'm not a nutrition expert, but what's worked for me, and especially for working professionals like yourself and myself, just eating high quality foods, eating stuff that grows in the ground, that's fruits, vegetables, eating high quality proteins, fish, eggs, chicken, beef, elk, certain types of wild game, and then really limiting like processed foods or foods in a package for that matter, which can be tough to do if you're on an airplane or you're traveling a lot. But I try and keep it simple and do what makes me feel good, and things like eating berries and apples and bananas and oranges and good quality fruits, and then vegetables, salads, when you can. But if you're going to push the body, you need to put the right type of nutrients in it so that it can recover. And a lot of times what you'll see with athletes that push really hard is they don't get enough high quality protein and nutrients in their diet.
I don't think most people understand how hard you have to work to keep the weight off or to lose weight or to gain strength. I think a lot of people think they can, I think part of it's showing up to the gym, but you got to do something when you're in there. But I think a lot of people don't realize the discipline it takes and the effort it takes consistently with your diet, with your amount of physical training you do. I think you just take a pill and I'm going to lose weight or whatever. And I think a lot of people have no idea. So listening to your story with, in junior high school and at Tipton and Wartburg, you've obviously had it in your head, the discipline, and you kind of tell us a little bit about how it gets in your system where, like, if you didn't get a workout today, you'd probably be alley, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Or maybe I should say 2 workouts, right? But I mean, it's funny how people at all ages get into a rut of socially. What do you do socially? Well, we're going to go out, we're going to have a drink, or we're going to go eat, or we're going to go to a movie theater. Of course, then I start eating popcorn. It's interesting to get into bad habits, but I think the good thing that I like to talk about is that you can get in shape, and it's one step at a time. You got to go slow, no matter what your age is. But if you can just get into the habit, I remember when I first started to work out, 15 years ago, I had a 30-year hiatus. I added another chin. I had 4 then, but I remember that I started to work out. Well, I forgot my stuff. That was my excuse. I get down to, I forgot my stuff. Well, then I started learning, well, you better put your stuff in the night before if you're going to go run. And it's funny that I listen to people all the time, all the excuses they have for not working out, not doing anything. But the benefits are so tremendous. And you talk to any physician, any nurse, anybody that is around the medical field, they all talk about staying in shape and just doing something. Just go for a walk. Just move.
Yeah.
Do anything. Obviously, you want to. Hopefully, you can show up at a gym and do something. But just tell us your mindset, and then we're going to start to get into some of the endurance events that we've done. Tell us your mindset on a daily basis of what you're thinking about.
Yeah, you really articulated it well about consistency and frequency, and I think there's a lot of benefits that come from fitness and exercise and just doing something, as you had mentioned. And it's not all physical, right?
Right. No, it's a lot mental.
Yeah, it's a great way to relieve yourself of some stress. It's good solitude for you if you got something going on at work or at home or with school or anything. It's a great time for you to get away from the devices and to put in some time to work on yourself, to think, but to also, you just feel better.
Right.
You mentioned, like, if I didn't do my exercise today, I'd probably be a little irritable, a little anxious. And so I think what you said around consistency and the habitual nature of that is true. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about the world of endurance sports, but if you talk to any endurance athlete or any Ironman triathlete or any ultra marathoner or any marathoner, heck, any athlete, really, it's all about consistency and frequency and making it a habit, and it becomes a part of your life. And I think it helps with not just physically but mentally in a big way. And it's been a big part of my life, most of my life. And I think if that's stripped away from you, you've battled some things from a health standpoint. If that's stripped away from you and taken away from you for a period of time, you really get the realization that, oh my gosh, this is a really big part of my life. It makes me who I am. It makes me feel good. It makes me a better father, a better husband, a better employee, and it keeps you. Helps you keep your equilibrium between your ears. So
think about it. In our businesses, you have stress. What's a better way to deal with stress? To go for a jog, go for a walk. I mean, I encourage people that I know, go out and walk around the block, go for, a half hour, just get out of here, get away from everything.
Yep.
Just settle yourself down. And a lot of times you got to push yourself, but you feel so much better after the workout.
Yeah.
It might be hard to get up in the morning at 5:30, put your shoes on and go for a run, but when you're done, you feel great, and you're glad you did it.
Yep.
It's just taking that step and that discipline to do it. So my hope is to encourage people listening to us and listening to you, and that anybody can do it. You don't have to be a natural athlete. You can just start one step at a time.
Yep.
So let's get into endurance sports.
And just quickly, that's great advice, because it doesn't have to be a marathon. It doesn't have to be a half marathon.
That's right.
It's just getting in that habit and that routine and sticking to it for a while and having the discipline to just give yourself 2 weeks, give yourself 4, give yourself 6. And, it's got a compounding effect of what it does for you. And I think over time, when that's stripped away, you realize how good it really is for you, because you got an association of how you feel when you're in it versus how you feel when you're not in it.
I went 8 weeks here a few years ago where you can only walk to the end of your lane and back. And so I had people call me, go, is he still doing that? Is he sitting still? And it was hard, because you're right, when it's stripped away from you and you can't do it, you just sit there and go, gosh, I'll never, ever complain again about a workout.
Yeah.
Never, ever again, because it's just, be thankful you can do a workout. Be thankful you can be active, because a lot of people can't be.
Yeah.
They have sickness or whatever, they can't do it. So
yeah, and I never had to go through something quite as traumatic as you did relative to my health. But when I went through a little scare in 2015, where I acquired a bacterial disease called leptospirosis, and it knocked me down hard for a week. I spent about 6 days in the hospital, lost a ton of weight, couldn't eat.
How much did you lose?
25 pounds or something like that.
But you don't recommend that as a weight loss?
No, I don't. And
not to get that.
And I had headaches and joint pain and all this, and it took a while to figure out what exactly was going on, but they treated me right, and I was on an IV narcotics for a while to manage pain and the headaches. I couldn't really stand seeing light, and then also they treated me with an intravenous antibiotic as well, like a doxycycline, I think it was. But they were doing the right things, but we didn't know what it was right away. We had to do some blood work, and it took some time to get that blood work back.
It scared you, didn't it?
It scared the heck out of me. And I've got a quote on my whiteboard at home. You've been in my office, and you've seen we've got a pole building that's our little home gym. And, on that board, when I walked out of the hospital, I wrote, I had heard it on some podcast. I don't remember where exactly, but health is a freedom very few realize they have until it's taken away from them.
Right.
And so your points about being grateful that you can exercise and that you can do these things and you can move your body and make yourself feel better.
It's a blessing.
It's a blessing, and you should be grateful for it. And there's people that are dealing with a lot worse out there, battling cancer, kids battling cancer. And, you know, if you ever had days where you don't want to work out, it could be a lot worse, you know.
You know, atrophy is 30 days, isn't it? You got 30 days to move, or after 30 days, you're pretty well.
Well, and the older you get, the more aggressive that is, right? And you know, and I know from over the years, just if you go away from it from a little while and distance yourself from it, it's that much harder to get
Plus,
back
the older
into
you get, the gravity sets in, things start to pull down. So let's get into endurance sports. Obviously, you know, people don't know you do triathlons, and I'm just curious, with your background, you were in, exercise and a lot of sports and high school and college, and then you got into strength training. What were you thinking about when you got into endurance sports, or what led you to that?
You know, I got exposed to just some people that were into it, and I actually went and watched a race. And I never.
Which one? Did you go to?
I went to Madison.
Oh, you went to Madison?
I went to Madison in 2013. Watched two good friends do it.
Yeah.
Sean Merrick and Adam Haleska. And I had always been big into weight training, and I got into CrossFit for a while and really enjoyed that, the community of it, and you know, pushing yourself and working hard with other people, and that was a ton of fun. But I went up there.
It's kind of windy that morning. Remember that?
Yeah, I do. I think you raced that day, right? Yeah. And I went up and I watched that, and I saw people finishing that day, and I was at the finish line.
Yeah.
And I saw my friends, and I saw them go through the journey of the day. And there, in Madison, there's a ton of people on State Street watching, tailgating, having fun, out on the bike course. And I was just like, wow. I was exposed to something I'd never really ever seen. And just the thrill and excitement of those people running down the chute after a full day, being out there exercising, man, it was really attractive to me. And seeing some friends do it made it even more fun. And I was just like, I was hooked. I'm like, I got to do this.
You got to do it. You couldn't sit in the stands after you watched it.
No.
You
So the old competitor in me came out and was like, I'm going to do one of these.
Yeah. Wisconsin's a fun one to watch because, you know, you get out on a bike course, people are in costume, Halloween costumes, it seems like. And I remember devils chasing us up one hill with pitchforks. I'm like, man, I got to get going here.
Yeah.
But what a great thing. So you saw a lot of pain. You probably saw a lot of suffering. You probably saw a lot of people that weren't having any fun either, right? When you're out there watching the athletes.
It's a long day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what you can't appreciate until you've done one is how they really are feeling and what they're going through, and you can't appreciate until you've trained for one the amount of sacrifice, commitment, for not only the athlete but the folks around them.
The families.
Yeah,
they're in it with you.
They sure are. And if they're not, it makes it. It can make it hard.
You're gone a lot. You're never around.
Yeah.
I think Adam Haleska, he was a basketball star at Iowa. And I think he journaled it, and I think after it he talked about, I think the kids had signs up, Dad, you've been gone for how many thousand hours, and now we get to see you.
Yeah.
And I think wouldn't you say training is probably pretty persistent for 9-10 months, a year to get ready for an Ironman?
Yeah, that's the funny thing about an Ironman. You know, a lot of things you can just kind of go out and do.
Right.
I don't know many people that can train for an Ironman in a couple months. It's about a minimum 30-week commitment, depending on your fitness level stepping into it. Now, if you're really good, you can compress that window. But yeah, I don't see doing it in less than 30 weeks especially if it's your first time, and it's hard to fake it for a full day. You'd be in the hurt locker if you didn't put in the right kind of time.
It's hard to find a place to hide out there.
Yeah.
There really
sure
isn't anywhere
is.
to go.
Yeah, especially now where they track every athlete, you know. So
you're on GPS and they're ready to go.
Yeah.
So tell us what is an Ironman. Give us the distances, because a lot of people say, well, you know, and they also think that every triathlon's an Ironman, and maybe go through the different distances. We'll start with an Ironman distance, because each segment of it is usually most people couldn't do.
Yeah.
So just talk about an Ironman.
Yeah. So you're right. A big misconception about an an Ironman is that's what every triathlon is. Well, the Ironman's kind of the Super Bowl, if you will, of triathlons. And so it starts with a 2.4-mile open water swim, followed by T1, which is your transition to the bike, which is then 112 miles of biking. And then you go to T2, which is your second transition from the bike to the run. And the run's a marathon. It's 26.2 miles. So all in, by the end of the day, you cover 140.6 miles. And I don't think T1 and T2 are actually factored into that 140.6, but I could be wrong.
Yeah. So it's a long day.
It's a long day.
It's a lot going
on. And for those that haven't been exposed to the sport, a lot of times the races start at 7 a.m. and there's checkpoints at the end of the swim and the bike and then the run that you have to meet in order to advance to the next one, which most people do. But at midnight, the race shuts down.
Right.
So
17 hours. Isn't it?
Yep. So
that's kind of cool. Tell the folks about after you complete. You usually come back to the finish line and root over all the other athletes coming in, which is cool. And then talk about those last few people coming in, how cool that is to make it under 17 hours.
Yeah, there's a lot of different motivations for people to do an Ironman, and you never quite know when you see folks out there for whatever reason they're doing it. But, lights are on from usually that time of year. Well, with Madison, it's a September race, so from 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. to midnight, it's dark. Right. And they got the lights on the final stretch and the final shoot. And one of the cool things when you cross is they mention your name and say you are an Ironman. And it's fun after you finish to watch those people stroll in and those folks that are minutes away from making and meeting the deadline of midnight. And it's just it's really inspiring to see because you'll see all levels.
They cheer them coming in. It's kind of neat.
People rooting others on and people that have been sitting there a good part of the afternoon and day, which is really cool.
So, but you didn't start with an Ironman. How did you saw an Ironman in 13? Then what'd you do? Would you sign up for a sprint or Olympic?
I started with the sprint, and the sprint's a 500-600 yard swim followed by usually a 12 to 15 mile bike and then a 5K run. So, it's for those that are really fast, they can do it in a little over an hour, and it takes up to 2 hours.
Right.
The next distance up is the Olympic distance, where you swim 0.9 miles, so almost a mile. You bike 25 miles, and then you run a 10K, which is 6.2 miles. Right. The next step is the half Ironman distance, which is 70.3 miles in totality. And you do a 1.2 mile swim, a 56-mile bike, and then a half marathon, a 13.1-mile run. So
that's a good half day.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a tough race.
Yeah, it's a good distance.
Yeah.
So how many races have you done so far, would you say?
Oh, geez. Man, I've lost count over the years. I've done probably at least 7 or 8 half
Ironman.
I've lost count on the sprints. Probably 4 or 5 Olympics. And then I've done the full Ironman 3 times. Yeah, 3 times.
Your last Ironman was Wisconsin, and weren't you in the top 30 out of 1,800 or 2,000?
Yeah, I got 30 out of
2,000?
1,800 to 2,000, something like that. Yeah, so I put a lot of work and effort into the last one. You get the bug, and the first thing is just finishing it. But then the competitor in me wanted to place in the top 3 in my age group and potentially end up in the World Championships in Kona, which is for triathletes is kind of a destination and a big sign of a great accomplishment, in that you're kind of the best of the best in age group triathlon.
But your age group, you had to be top 3.
Yep.
And you had the toughest age group, because to be in the top 30 out of 1,800 or 2,000 athletes and then not go to Kona, that's got to be a tough one.
Yeah, it is. It's it's a long day, and the race doesn't really begin when you're at that level and you're competing to be the top 3 or 4. The race doesn't really begin until the last hour of the day.
Yeah. That's when the fun hits, right?
That's when that's when everything starts to hurt, and all the alarms go off. The low fuel light, and man, I'm feeling woozy, and man, my bones hurt, and I can feel it in my joints, and I got to hold this pace, and I'm maybe a little nauseous and
Cramping up
potentially, and trying to get food on because you know you need it, but
Throwing
you don't
up.
want to. Yeah. So, and just at that point, the race is really between your ears. So,
Yeah. So how has it helped you on your mental side? I mean, preparing for one and then actually doing one. Don't you feel like you conquered all your fears of whatever you have in business or personal life?
I tell you, yeah, that's a good question. You know, from your own experience, maybe I'd ask you that same question, but I think what happens is you develop a level of resiliency and a level of confidence after you've done one or two that, wow, if I can do this, it makes other things seem rather trivial, and
right.
Pushing yourself to new levels of discomfort and really like I don't know, searching to it's kind of a war against yourself, searching to accomplish what you want to the best of your ability, and saying, when I close that day, man, I left it all out there, and I gave what I had, and I didn't wimp out, which is really hard to do on a long day like that. And so I think just that resiliency of character and willpower, and that carries over into all aspects of life, because you're going to deal with stressful things at home. You maybe lose a loved one, you have problems with your marriage, you have problems with your business, whatever it is, it helps galvanize you and into a better person, and makes you more resilient, and really helps you cope and deal with stress, I think.
Yeah, it's. I think you conquer your demons. If you're fighting demons, you'll conquer them on the course, and just the training it takes to get to that point.
Yeah.
The other funny thing that you ought to tell the audience is that, you get done with one, you might go have a cheeseburger or something really good to eat because you've had goo and stuff all day. And then you're up at 5:36 the next morning. You think, hey, I've had a tough day. I'm going to sleep in, but you don't. You're up and you're ready to go again.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. So,
that meal afterwards, if you can stomach it.
Yeah, if you can eat.
Or a cold beer after one of those.
That's good
never tastes better. Yeah. So
tell us that you've done marathons, and I know you just recently tried to qualify for Boston. You got really close in Illinois. But another race that just intrigues me with the endurance part of it was it rim to rim where you ran in the Grand Canyon?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I've got a good friend who's a great runner, Tanner Clark. Tanner and I have done a lot of running together over the years, and
Solon, he's from Solon.
Yeah, right? Yep. And we talked about it many times. We always wanted to run what they call run the Grand Canyon, but what they call rim to rim to rim. So some people do rim to rim, which is one side of the Grand Canyon to the other, and then there's rim to rim to rim, which is you run from one side to the other and then back all in one day. And so we got this wild idea to really test ourselves and go try this and see what it's all about. And you can research it and Google it, and you see lots of people do it, and they do it really well. But we set out to do it and make a long weekend out of it, and our wives came along. We had a great time, but we knew it was going to be tough, but I think we kind of underestimated how hard it would get late in the day. And we had one heck of a time. We made some memories out there. We laugh and joke about it all the time, but it was really fun to share that experience with him. And
what time did you start?
We
3 a.m.
We had the best of intentions to start at 5 a.m. right when the sun came up, shortly thereafter, and we got dropped off by my wife. And we thought we were close to where we were supposed to start on the South Kaibab Trail. We were actually a couple miles from it, so we got started a little late. It was probably 5:45, 5:50, which we probably would have ideally been going by 5. But we wanted to see
sunrise.
We wanted to see sunrise, and we wanted to see the South Canyon because it's really just wild to see up close and personal like that. And as you're running down, it's kind of cool to be able to, not do that in darkness. So we waited. We left around 5:50, something like that, and we didn't end up finishing till almost 7 at night.
7 at night. And how far was it? What was the elevation?
Well, the route we took ended up being almost 50 miles because we got dropped off at we had Megan drop us off at the wrong location, so we put in 2 miles before we even started. And Sarah Clark, Tanner's wife, was with us as well. And she ran down to the bottom of the canyon. But so we took a little detour before we even started, but it ended up being close to 50 miles. My Garmin died. I think Tanner's did as well. But we were at 48 and change with a mile to go, so we knew it had to have been close to 50 miles.
And what was the elevation change?
Total elevation was 20,000 feet. I think 10,000 of climb total, and then 10,000 of the downhill. And you know, that was what we knew was going to be a challenge, but we didn't quite prepare well enough for it because all of the downhill running really tore up our legs pretty bad.
It's harder than the uphill. Weren't you on like real narrow?
The path's pretty wide. I mean, they take supplies down to what they call Phantom Ranch, which is down in the bottom where there's a campground every day, and they do that on mules. We actually got behind the mules. They always say you want to get in front of the mules in the morning so that you can actually beat them because it's hard to get around them on the trail.
Yeah.
We happened to just get lucky and catch them on a curve. So we started behind them, but then on a curve we were able to cut in front of them. So, yeah.
So tell me about the last hour, the last few miles.
Yeah.
How hard was it? How deep did you have to dig?
Well, I'm glad my good buddy Tanner was there with me. I was feeling like laying down and sucking on my thumb there for a while. It was towards the end. It wasn't a run anymore. It was
just get in.
Yeah, just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and a lot of feelings going through your head like, why are we doing this? Yeah. And wow, I wish we were just done. But
what'd you learn from it? Because a lot of people. Most people don't push themselves.
Yeah.
They don't do anything that requires any real serious effort. And the things that you've done have been extreme effort. What do you think you learn, or what do you gather when you get really, really deep mentally, physically? You know, you're conditioned, you're trained, but you really got to go way more than just the physicality of it to get in.
Yeah. That's what's kind of cool about it and always leaves you really fulfilled afterwards is just like, hey, I accomplished something really cool, really big. And in this case, it was like when I did Ironman with you in 2018, you did it with a friend, you went through it together. And the same thing with Tanner. Like we got through it together. Tanner had his rough moments at the end. I had my rough moments. But I think the thing you learn, again, comes back to resiliency and that we're capable of a lot more than we realize.
Right.
And, you know, some of the folks that I follow outside of work, you know, folks like Cameron Haynes and David Goggins and some of these people that they're just fascinating. Yeah. You learn that humans are really special and they're capable of a lot. And the human body is amazing. You can push it and push it and push it, and we're capable of much more than we realize. Right. We often sell ourselves pretty darn short.
Right.
And you know, it kind of reframes your mindset on what you're comfortable taking on, your fears you tackling big challenges. It changes your mindset.
Right.
It makes
you can do it.
Yeah, it really does.
I think we were created as hunters and gatherers. I think caveman or whatever, you go back to that. And if you think about it, you know, the guys went out and they were chasing, running around the Serengeti, bringing the food back to the cave to cook it up. And so all day long they're working to get the food. If they didn't get anything or kill it, then bring it back to the cave, they didn't eat.
Yeah.
So we were moving and running and eating plants, and we didn't really have like popcorn and hamburgers and fried, you know, at some corner. And then look at our diets and look how it's changed. And we're so sedentary.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about the people that you know, they're so sedentary. They don't do anything.
Yeah.
And they wonder why they have ailments. And if you ever talk to a doctor, that's, you know, type 2 diabetes is from being sedentary. A lot of it is until you start to move. Before we, so to sum up Ironman, you don't start with an Ironman. You don't start with a marathon. So it's just for the average guys to kind of start out and do, let's say Camp Courageous here next summer is a good triathlon to start.
Great triathlon.
What do you need to think about to get going, and what distance, and how do you get your feet wet? Little, you got to get into the pool, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would encourage somebody that's looking to start out to grab a friend that's also interested in doing it and get in the pool. Just swim 2 times a week. You know, get on the bike a couple times a week, and then do some runs. And there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of ways to learn how to train for them, but you just got to start by, getting your goals down on paper, what you want to start with, and just map out a plan. You don't want to just aimlessly do it, but maybe I want to swim twice a week, maybe I want to bike 3 times a week, and maybe I want to run 3 times a week. And then fit it into your calendar. Make it, make a plan, set some goals, and then just take action. Like a lot of times we find ourselves just talking about things.
Right.
That's what Tanner and I did for a while with rim to rim to rim, and finally we were just like,
do it.
This is when we're going. We're going to book flights. This is where we're staying. And we put it on the calendar, and then we worked backwards.
Right.
We made a plan. We talked about what we thought we wanted to do to finish it in a certain time. And so find a buddy, find a friend. It's fun.
Right. And try to do all 3 during the week. Don't just do swim all week. Try to mix it up. Swim, bike, run.
Put some space between those different disciplines. Right. Yeah. Maybe swim on Tuesday and Friday and run, Monday, Thursday, Saturday, and then, fit your 2-3 bikes in somewhere in the middle of that as well.
Most of the people I talk to is I don't swim. I didn't swim either.
Yeah.
But you just got to get in the pool and do it. Little by little, you pick it up because it's unnatural. You're not born in a pool. Well, maybe you are, kind of. But anyway, you're not. It's unnatural to swim and breathe. We're not fish.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, after they learn how to swim and cross-train, they feel they're better off if they've cross-trained rather than opposed to just running all the time or just biking all the time. And when they swim, it's a great exercise, and they feel so much better because you're working everything and you're not pounding your joints like on a running or on a bike.
It makes me think of a funny story. So one of my lifelong childhood friends is Cody Kelly.
Yeah.
We did our first Ironman together in 2016. When we bought a book, it was called Iron Fit by Don Fink. Yeah. Great program. It's time-based training. Cody and I, we really hadn't swam in, I don't know, since we were kids.
Yeah.
I mean, and the first couple times we went into the pool, it was a struggle to get from one side to the other
without breathing.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're going to drown. And
yeah. And I don't know about you. When was the first time you swam?
Well, I swam to a boat and back when I skied 20 feet. So when I got in the pool, I think my first Ironman was in 12, and I got in the pool probably in 2010. And I went down as hard as I could, and I was dog paddled. And I got to the end and stopped, and I thought I was going to drown, Then I dog paddled back, and there was a guy standing there, and he goes, "Hey, do you breathe on land?" And I'm looking like, "What? What are you saying?" I want to crawl out of the pool, anyway, go after him. And he says, "Well, you got to breathe in the water." Oh, that's a good idea. So I had to slow down and try to get that breath. And I had to stay at it for 30 days. And then I finally got it, picked it up a little bit. Yeah. And I think that's another thing is people got to understand you're going to get it that first time or two.
That's a good point.
You got to be persistent, and you got to stay after it. Before we go, we got to tell the listeners a story that we had the honor, the privilege to train with Dave Scott.
Yeah.
We got to bring up Dave Scott.
Yeah.
And some people are going, "Who's Dave Scott?" So do you want to kind of fill us in on what that week was like and how it ended up and how it started and what we went through with Dave Scott?
Man, that was awesome.
And who he is.
In 2018, Gary and I went to a 7-day long camp put on by in Hawaii, put on by Dave Scott. And Dave Scott, for those that don't know, is probably one of the best triathletes of all time. Right. He's a 6-time Ironman world champion. Yeah. I don't know how many races he's won outside of the world championships, but he is an impressive man in terms of the body of work of his career and the number of wins he's had. But he put on this experience called the Dave Scott Experience, where he teaches you about swimming, biking, and running. He teaches you about nutrition. He teaches you about how to train effectively and intelligently. And we had parts of the day that were in the classroom, but I think we did about 2-3 workouts a day when we were a part of this. And Kona's beautiful, and for those that haven't been, it's a fantastic place to do it. But we were at a great resort and had a lot of great meals. But we learned a lot that week. They filmed us swimming. They filmed us biking. They filmed us running. And you wouldn't think that you can learn a lot about those disciplines. You can learn a ton in the water. They filmed us from the side. They filmed us from underneath us. But then also when we were biking and running as well, and he gave a lot of tips and tricks that the pros use to make you more efficient and then training principles that really I think helped us that year get prepared for the Ironman Wisconsin in 2018. Is there anything you took away from it
Well, I just remember how tired we were by the end of the week because I think it was 3 workouts a day, and they're pretty significant.
Yeah.
A lot of nutrition. I remember we got to Friday, I think, and we want to go swimming in the ocean at Kona where the Ironman swim. And he looked at us, and we got out of this little van. He said, "How far do you guys want to swim?" And I'm like going, "Oh, I'll just do a half mile." I was just going to do something like that. But he said, "Well, let's just at least do a mile and a quarter." Okay, I can get that done, get it out of here, and get that done. And so one of the guys says, "Well, let's do the whole thing, 2.4." And I'm like, "No." And it was kind of a little bit choppy.
It was at the end of the week, too.
So Dave goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, you guys, I'll swim backwards so you can see my hands in the air." And I'm like going, okay, he's swimming on his back, So I think I think you went a little further, but I did a mile and a quarter, about half of it. And all I can remember seeing is his arms are up in the air. And I think then he did the whole thing in like an hour and 5 minutes, 2.4 miles with that other guy. And I came back. And I know Saturday we were going to get up and ride to Hawaii. Yeah. Was it 80 miles from where we're staying? And I think we both looked at each other and go, "So I think I'm just going to go for a walk with our wives." So anyway, what a great week that was. So the last thing I want to talk about is when you're training for like rim to rim, and I don't know how you think, but Ironman and endurance athletes, here's a guy that we both respect and love is David Goggins. If you haven't seen this is his latest book. It's called Never Finished. And he's written another book called Can't Hurt Me. And if you're into endurance sports or you're into physical challenges, mental challenges, he's a Navy SEAL. I think he was a Ranger. I think he was just about everything in the military. Yeah. At one time, he was 300 pounds, and he sprayed for bugs, believe it or not. And now he does 200-mile races. He's got a knee that's like fused together with like 6 screws. I don't even know what you call it. You know the procedure. Mm-hmm. And he's motivational. He's on YouTube. He's pretty colorful to listen to, the way he thinks. But his whole thing is he goes into kind of what I call the hurt locker, the pain locker. And he does such extreme activities. He's just trying to get to another level and then endure the pain and then kind of teach you about it. Yeah. So he goes so far above a normal person. But I can remember when we were training for Ironman, that, once in a while we'd laugh and go, well, I wonder what Goggins would be thinking. Yeah. Because when he gets tough is when he gets started. Yeah. And I highly encourage anybody that likes to hear about physical challenges, mental challenges. I have no idea. I wasn't in the military or what it takes, but this guy's done it all. He's friends with Cameron Hanes, is the world's best hunter, and the type of shape that Cameron Hanes is in. But if you want a good book, read Never Finished. It's unbelievable, and I think it means a lot to you if you're trying to do an endurance sport. So, Randy, anything else you want to close on? I think it's been great. We could probably go on all day.
No, this has been fun. To be honest, this is the first time I've ever done anything like this.
It's your first podcast.
Yeah.
Well, good job. This is great.
You too. This has been great. No, I think, at the end of the day, like surrounding yourself with content like that those folks put out that you mentioned, Cam Hanes, David Goggins. I love doing that kind of thing. I know you do as well, because it kind of reframes your perspective on what we're capable of, and really allows you to become your best self, right. Best version of yourself. And so that's what I love, and that's what I've loved about, training with you over the years, training with my buddy Cody Kelly, with Sean Merrick, Haleska, these guys that I mentioned, Tanner. It's great to just surround yourselves with people and the content that really allows you to become better and grow personally and professionally. So.
It's hard to explain the community, but for endurance athletes, Ironman athletes, it's just a great community. No matter who it is, everybody encourages each other. Yeah. They help you with training. My first Ironman, I sat down with a guy who had done an Ironman already. He spent like 3 hours in a coffee shop going through nutrition and how to do that, what type of bike. And that whole community, everybody cares about each other. They don't care whether you did it in 10 hours or 17 hours.
Right.
You're an Ironman, and it means a lot. It's a heck of a fraternity. I'm just proud to be part of it.
Yeah, me too.
Anyway, hey, Randy, this has been great.
Yeah, thank you for
Thanks
having
coming
me.
in.
I love your setup here.
It's been a blast.
Yeah.
So have a good one.
All right, thank you.